Why are the toys alive in the Toy Story universe? This is the question that has plagued the internet, my mind, and these movies. In the first film, it's simple, they're just toys. But what kind? Well, we see action figures being alive, but a toy box isn't. But somehow a piggy bank is, even though it definitely isn't a toy. Then, in the fourth movie, we break the entire concept with a spork being alive. And then, in the new fifth movie, we have a literal iPad. But what if I told you? It does all make sense. That there is a theory that solves exactly how and what toys are, and the great conspiracy on why toys haven't been discovered. Don't believe me? Well, let me explain. At first, I thought this all would be simple, because the only real question here is why are they alive? And on the surface, there are some great answers to all of that. From kids' imagination to toys being AI, it all felt pretty simple. Until you dig deeper. What exactly is a toy? If it's just something you've played with, then why is Stinky Pete or the many toys in stores alive? Or literal Ted? You don't exactly play with Ted, you use it. So why in Toy Story 5 is the tech alive? To further this, how has nobody found out about toys? With security cameras and just parents, these toys should have been discovered in the last all of human history, especially with how much they interfere with human lives. Or why do they freeze in the first place? Like in Toy Story 5 when the Buzz toys run into a human and freeze automatically, then literally saying, why did we freeze? But also are able to not freeze, like how Woody revealed himself to Sid. It all just feels so confusing, because all of this is the toy paradox. Every movie the series adds, it gains more lore, but in return makes old lore more confusing, breaking all conventions of a story and making my job as a theorist incredibly hard. Until I found one thing, or more, I re-looked at what is alive in this movie, and in that I found something. It explains Forky, the toys, and even the Buzzes, and it all lies in one simple concept, that everything in the Toy Story universe is alive, or at least it can be. Let me explain. I believe everything in the Toy Story universe holds a potential for sentience. This means toys, utensils, Ted, even a car. But that potential is dormant until human imagination awakens it and breathes identity into the object. But what exactly does that mean? Well, identity is something powerful in this universe, and humans can shape it. When you or me look at a fork, we see a utensil. Or if it's a used fork ready to be thrown away, we see trash. But we don't see it as alive. So in this universe, any normal fork has a dormant identity of a fork, but only that. This is my basis for my logic, and it becomes deeper with children. A child's imagination is very strong. So strong that because they believe a toy is alive in a way, they just are. And if you need evidence of this, look at Forky. An adult doesn't look at an ordinary fork and believe it can talk, think, or have feelings. Most children don't even, but Bonnie does. So she makes him alive. She puts googly eyes on him and sees him as a toy, and to her, toys are alive. So in return, so is Forky. This explains all of it. Children are gods, at least compared to other humans. They can awaken the dormant identities and even breathe new life into them just because they believe so. This even explains why toys in the stores are alive, because the simple fact of children walking by breathes life into them. They are awakened by the presence of their small gods, and they beg for play like we beg for the answer to a prayer. Now I have an interesting point with this concept for Stinky Pete. Not on why he lives, I think it's similar to the reason toys in stores are. Or maybe because Al is so insane in his imagination, it can somehow breathe life. No, instead I have a theory on why he's so obsessed with being on display. Al is obsessed with one thing, selling the toys in his possession. He sees them as objects for display, and that identity is so strong that it has been ingrained in P. The reason Jessie has it less is the child's love she has experienced overpowers it. But P, well, he's only had Al, and that identity put on him is that of an object for display. So in return, that's all he sees himself as. This concept will become stronger in our next chapter, where we look at toys and what human children can do to them. Now with all this, I do have to ask one thing. How exactly do adults not notice toys? The things are in plenty and are always doing something incredibly stupid. Well, I call it the Santa Claus dilemma, being that in movies with Santa Claus, parents should believe in him because he is doing things they obviously couldn't explain. Plus, as kids, they always end up seeing him because in these universes, he never really is good at hiding from children. Now, I have a solution based on the whole theory of belief and perception. Adults do not believe toys to be alive. There is no conceptual idea in their brain that could ever choose that as possible. So, when a toy falls in the eyelight of an adult and their perception has to receive an inanimate object as alive, it can't. And that belief, that core fundamental value in itself is supernatural and affects the toys, making them freeze. That's right. This is why I believe toys can freeze in front of adults. But what about children? Well, I think the effect applies to them, but it can be broken since kids in some way believe toys to be alive. And well, that explains everything. Why Sid could get traumatized by Woody, but Woody cannot be seen by an adult in Toy Story 3. If you look at the famous scene in that movie with Woody and the janitor, the second he's in the eyeline, even through a mirror, he freezes. Now with this all said, I would like to look at toys themselves and the insanity of what humans can do with them and what a toy really is. Let me explain. What defines a toy? Is it manufacturing or what it looks like? Well, Buzz Lightyear seems to be based on what he started as, but Forky very much is not. Or an early example is Ham, who is a piggy bank, but treated as an ordinary toy. So what exactly is it? Well, it's simple. It's children. Like I said, imagination is power. The mind of a child is so much stronger than that of an adult, and how it affects toys is similar. Just use Buzz as an example. The manufacturer who made the Buzz Lightyear toys does believe he is a Space Ranger toy, so the identity is put into Buzz. But of course, the humans also believe that Buzz is a toy. So there in return is multiple fragments of identity from the perception of a human into Buzz. He is a Space Ranger, but he also is a toy. All of this doesn't matter though once Buzz lands in the hand of Andy, a kid with a very strong imagination. He instantly believes his toy to be alive, but he also believes him to just be a Space Ranger, because his form of play is very heavily based on the toys acting as a role. So Buzz doesn't see himself as a toy, but simply carries the fragment of one, letting him do things like freeze. But as Andy plays and also gets out of his obsession with Buzz Lightyear, his strict role isn't important. He slowly treats Buzz as any other toy, letting him do multiple roles during playtime. And so Buzz slowly loses that strict identity. But hey, if you still don't believe me or need another easier to understand example, I get it. That's why Forky is still so important. Forky begins with the initial identity of not a toy or a role for a toy, but a sport. What about to be thrown away? This was given to him by the manufacturers, and most importantly, a child. He was going to be thrown away in the trash by a human child before Woody saved him. And while they view him not as a toy, they still viewed him as something, and that child's imagination was still incredibly powerful. So the minute a more playful kid like Bonnie brought him to life, that previous identity still was so strong, it carried as the core and took a lot of work to be overridden by Bonnie. This concept can be applied though in a different way, for a child's imagination during playtime can literally reshape a toy, turning them into a puppet for the kid, not just in body, but in mind. In the fifth movie, there are playtime sequences where toys have never been played with perfectly do their roles, like they are them, because that is their reality. Toys are shaped by children. But all of this does lead me to one question. What happens to a toy over time? What is age to a toy like Woody? And can they forget a previous identity? Well, let me explain. What happens to a toy whose identity is overridden? A toy like a Buzz Lightyear who's drawn from house to house, or a Woody who started on a TV show in the 50s and ended up in Bonnie's closet, or eventually a carnival. Well, this is where this theory gets horrifying. I believe identity fragments in a toy can fade as new ones are added, slowly over decades unless certain circumstances, but still fade. Buzz is the clearest example of this. Buzz Lightyear begins as a space ranger. That is his entire identity. He believes in Star Command, believes he can fly, and believes that his mission is real, until he gives living with Andy. And slowly he stops being a generic space ranger. He learns to be a toy, a part of the room. And when he meets other Buzz Lightyear toys, he cannot believe them. He forgets how he used to act. The concept of his old identity is literally baffling. He frequently asks, was I really like that? To the point I feel like he can barely remember it. That the old fragment of a space ranger is gone. This also can apply to Forky or even Ham, two objects with non-toy identities that with children basically forget their old ones, and with Forky changing his entire personality in Toy Story 5. Now all of this is important for one toy, Woody, a cowboy who has forgotten his past, his old owner, and who he was. Woody is around 38 years old in the first movie. He comes from the world of Woody's Roundup, which is popular in the 1950s. But Woody doesn't remember that life. He doesn't remember really anything before Andy. Even there's a theory of his father being Woody's original owner after the Roundup is basically canon. Why is this though? Well, it's all because of Andy and Bonnie and his time as a lost toy that have all rewritten his past as he became more of a leader, more of a toy than an actor playing a cowboy, and in return his memories going as well. I do believe this is the inevitable reality for all toys. In the fifth movie, they reference the idea of going kid, from house to house, and watching a childhood that also feels like it's going too quickly. And I think it's even more sad for them because they know as their humans forget them, they will too. Because a toy doesn't die, a toy lives forever. Which leads me to my final question of this theory. The Buzz Lightyear toys, what is going on with them? Was this shipment lost on an island but still alive in the fifth movie? Or how Buzz himself is so strong he can throw a TV 10 times his size, or even fly? Well, I think it all lies in the same answer. The government and how they are behind everything. Let me explain. To start things off, I want to revisit a question. How does nobody know about toys? Well, yes, the perception theory works, it doesn't explain cameras. Something we know toys can be caught on since in the third movie, they are seen on security cameras, and in the fifth, get tons of photos taken during the movie. Well, I think it all lies in the idea that in universe, there is a very dominant and strong government that lies in multiple industries, being by and large, the company that produces Buzz Lightyears, and in the WALL-E movie is the government. This of course enters Pixar theory territory because this video is part of a series where I solve the world building and questions of these movies, leading to a final theory connecting all of them. I've actually already done it with Cars, though in the final part I'll change some things, and I'm currently doing it to Toy Story. So if you want to see all of that, subscribe and turn on notifications. Either way, the company behind Buzz Lightyear toys does relate to the government, so they could be hiding the secret of toys being alive, which would also mean they know the toys they are making are sentient. Just think about it. The Buzz Lightyear toys are everywhere right during the space race, in a world where the US government knows about toys, so maybe the mass manufacturing of the Buzz Lightyear toys is not only to deepen the strength of American pride for the space race, as you can see in Andy, but to have their own toys they can test and control. And well, this is all proven when you look at the fifth movie with the Buzzes. In it, they are alive without children, but also acting differently. They are learning. They are literally stranded on a random island from a shipping container with hundreds of them, which makes no sense. How did a shipping container of only Buzz Lightyear toys get this far? And why are they so advanced? Well, I think it has to do again with the government. If they are creating these Buzz toys, most likely for actual government work as the perfect spy, putting them on an island where they must get off at all costs to get back to their government makes sense. And while these guys are obsessed with with one thing: law, order, and acting as a military. They worship Star Command, which is very similar to a real-world government that uses stars, being the US one. But are Buzz Lightyear toys really the perfect soldier? Well, yeah, because you can make them anything. Like I said, a kid can warp a toy in playtime, but an adult who knows the toys are alive, well, I think they could as well. Which explains why the Buzzes don't need kids, but it also explains something else. Why they're so strong, why they can fly. Because the government made them believe they can, so they simply are. Buzz lifts a TV not because of muscles, but because he's a titan in a body of plastic, made to go to war, to be a soldier. He is alive not because of Andy or any other kid, but because his company knows he is, therefore he is. And with that, this was the Toy Story conspiracy solved. Click on the end screen right here for the next one. Either way, bye.